Hello beautiful people. So I've been asked to do a little video series about how to choose your first live-in van. I've been living in vans for, well, this time about 8 years, but I have lived in 2 other vans previously when I was younger. So I've broken this down into 7 tips, and there's going to be 7 separate little videos. So the first thing is, how much money have you got? Vans have become a lot more expensive in the last year. This is October 2021 now. Partly because a lot of dealers were closed during the pandemic, and so there wasn't as much choice, but also because a lot of people are actually now getting out in vans because they're not able to leave the country, or they've decided they've just had enough of paying rent and bills. So unless somebody very kindly gives you a van, you're really looking at a minimum of about 3,000 to have something that is going to be reasonably roadworthy. If you're a really good mechanic, then you might get away with like 2,000. But the other thing to bear in mind is how old you are and how many years no claims insurance that you have, because the insurance could be anything from, say, £150 if you have lots of no claims and it's a motorhome and you already have another vehicle, to like £1,500 for if you're a young person with no claims and this is your first vehicle, or if you have no claims and this is for a motorhome when you don't actually have another vehicle. Insuring motorhomes and caravans is really expensive if you don't already have another vehicle, because if that's your main vehicle, they're going to charge you for it. And when it's a motorhome or a camper van, you have to go through a specialised insurance. You can't go through, one of these things that they advertise on TV where you just put in your details and they come up with the cheapest quotes. So there is a distinction between the insurances. If you have like just a regular van, an empty van, a panel van or a light van, or if you have a day van, which is something that like surfers use, where they have a fixed bed and maybe a little cooker or something, or if you have a camper van or a motorhome where you have like, a cooker and a fridge and an installed bed and all that sort of stuff. The insurance is really different for all of them, and they're actually registered as different types of vehicles. So now, in terms of your vehicle, let's say you're on your absolute minimum budget. The cheapest thing, if you want something that's at least long enough to sleep in, you're looking for something like a Citroën Dispatch, and there's also Fiat Scudos and Peugeot Experts. They're all basically the same sort of van. Now, I lived in one of those for 7 years, so it is possible, but you're literally just sleeping in it. So you're mainly living outdoors. You can put in like a little tiny little cupboard, and I used to put a lot of storage under the bed or alongside the bed with a very narrow bed. Now, but Citroën Dispatches are still one of the cheapest things that you can get. You could still get a reasonably good Citroën Dispatch for, under £2,000. As soon as you start going bigger than that, you're looking at, for a cheap van, you're looking at something like a Ford Transit. But again, £2,500, you're still looking at something that's like 20 years old. Of course, if you've got more money than that, then, you have a lot more options. Motorhomes and camper vans tend to be a lot more expensive. They may be reasonably low on mileage, but you're really paying paying for those fittings. So I was offered a very old Mercedes Sprinter recently that wasn't in great condition, but because it was all beautifully done up inside, it was like 10 grand or something, whereas I could have probably bought an empty Sprinter in the same sort of condition for just a few thousand. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So first of all, you want to look at your finances. How much money have you got available? And then whether you're going to go for a camper van or a motorhome, and if you do you already have your own vehicle, because you need to take into account quite a bit for the insurance if you don't, and how old you are, and therefore how much the insurance is going to be for you. Yeah, one more thing about insurance. If you buy a panel van or like an ex-ambulance or something like that, and you convert it into a camper van or a motor, a camper van with all fittings and things, then you will need to change the registration, not the registration number, but you'll need to change how the vehicle is registered from a camper van, from a panel van to a camper van, and that can be slightly complicated and could affect your insurance as well. Now, what I do is I make everything in my vans easy to take out. So nothing is fixed. With my Citroen Dispatchers, I was changing them every year or 2 years. So I'd literally pull up to the new one, and it would take me an hour to transfer everything from one van into the next van, because nothing was fixed. And I have nothing fixed in this Vauxhall Movano either. So it's still a panel van, it's still registered as a light van. And should I be stopped, I'm just carrying some furniture around with me. So it's another important consideration to make. It really does make a big difference in your insurance, whether you're insuring a panel van or a light van, or if you're insuring a camper van or a motorhome. If you are on very limited budget and you buy a relatively cheap van, please don't spend a lot of money doing it up inside. I had a friend who bought a beautiful old van. It was really lovely, classic, vintage, sort of lovely van. And she paid someone to panel it all out in wood. And that's another thing, if you panel in wood, it's heavy, okay? It adds a lot of weight to your van. She had it all panelled out in wood and beautiful cupboards made and a cooker and a bed. It was a little wood burner. It was really nice. Failed its MOT massively. Needed well over, more than the original cost of the van in terms of repair work required for it. And she had to dump the van. So if you are buying a really, really old van, don't put a lot of money into it. Do buy second hand, or just use scrap wood. This Vauxhall Movano, which I talk about a lot in this video, everything in it is second hand. I think I bought one piece of thick ply for my bed, and everything else is scrap or second hand. It's perfectly possible to do that. So just beware. You don't want your van to get to an MOT or have to have a major repair, which you then can't afford, and you've already invested a lot of money into that vehicle. It's a horrible decision to make. I used to buy, with my Citroen Dispatchers, they were always very old, cheap vans, and I would spend a certain amount on repairs. Once it was like, an expensive repair, I'd just say, okay, time for another van. So just a little warning that I've seen happen. Enjoy the videos.